Welcome everyone. Welcome to the International DCC Conference 2020. My name is Antonio Matamala and I work for BMAX. Today I would like to take you on a tour to explore the opportunities and the potential of the DCC. We will do so by looking into one particular industry and see what they did to digitalize their infrastructure, their processes, and how end consumers consume data. But let's start with a simple question first. What is the DCC? Well, that may depend on who you ask, of course, and on the background of the particular person. Some may say, well, the DCC is a vehicle to enable the digital transformation of the metrology industry. Others may say the DCC is a way to exchange data with others. And then others may say, well, the DCC, that's an XML file. In fact, that's all true. That is what the DCC is, somehow. In order to take a broader view on what the impact could be of the DCC, we'll take a look into what another industry has done. And I'm sure you know this one. I'm talking about the music industry. The music industry went through lots of changes. You may recall when you listen to LPs, and depending on your age, you may remember when you exchanged cassettes with other friends. You may be even that cool person that had this double tape recorder, which would allow you to not only reproduce music, but also copy music from one cassette to the other. For sure, there will be people in the public here in the audience that have grown up with CDs. And if you're more kind of a digital native, I'm sure that you may have heard about the MP3. The MP3 is a global standard, a global file format to store music data. I think that we cannot underestimate the significance of the MP3 for the music industry, because in fact it's changed it. It changed it completely, and it changed it forever. Let's take a look at the different technologies and compare those along 3 dimensions. So if you look at portability, of course the LPs, I don't think they really play a role here. And you may recall seeing movies in the 80s or from the 80s where young people had those ghetto blasters on their shoulder, and that's how they took the music to the streets. Nowadays you just carry a smartphone in your pocket, right? Well, if you look at sharing, well, if you're like me, then I'm sure that you may have some friends that still have some CDs of yours. And frankly speaking, I don't care too much, because nowadays I've got my whole music collection completely digitalized and stored somewhere on a hard disk or in the cloud. And archiving is not only about putting one CD on top of the other. It is how to find the music when you want to listen to it. And I'm sure that you will think like I do, and that playlists on a smartphone are much easier to handle. What happened in the music industry after the MP3 made its appearance is that people started to share information. And some smart people, they took their chance and took advantage of the MP3. And you may have heard of Napster, but Napster is a software package that allowed you to exchange MP3 files very easily. Well, maybe you could exchange any file using it, but I think that what it really made big was the exchange of music libraries. And you did not have to see the person, and you only had to have a computer, an internet connection, and then you could start sharing, sending and receiving, of course. Well, nowadays we might not do that any longer. Nowadays we might have an account on Spotify or on Tidal. These are the modern music platforms in which you, in fact, consume music by connecting to those platforms. And you see already a first wave of differentiation. Tidal is a platform that you will use, or that you would use if you wanted to have CD quality music from the internet. Most importantly, what the MP3 in fact did is it changed our behavior. It changed it in a significant way. We used to buy music on LPs, cassettes, CDs, or copy it, and suddenly we stopped thinking about music or music carriers that had to be physical objects. Physical objects made room for getting connected, and you just only need an ENS device, internet connection, and there you go. And that's thanks to a standard. Now let's take a look at the next step. Or is it part of the same step? Well, if you would ask me how to define this device that you see on the slide, you may say it is a navigation system of a pretty modern car. And in fact, it is a navigation system, but maybe it is not only a navigation system. You could think of it as an IoT endpoint device, where you have connectivity, where you can stream data, where you can stream big data, where, for example, those recommendations are based on artificial intelligence. And what I see as an end consumer is not the technology. I see the benefits of using that technology. In fact, I travel quite a lot, and for that reason I stopped listening to music, because it was not feasible to carry with me tons of CDs. For sure, MP3 made it much easier, but Spotify, I think, topped that one and made it much, much easier, more beneficial, and so on. So, being a tech guy, I understand the technology behind it, but as an end consumer, I don't really care too much about it. And this is something we need to keep in mind when we go for technology adoption. Why did we adopt so easily this technology? Why didn't we need to think twice about using it? Even if you don't understand it, you would use such apps. Now, I think there's a good reason why it happened the way it happened. And for sure, this person, I think, knew better when he came up with the idea that people did not want to rip CDs and just share MP3 files over the internet. He said, well, people will pay for it if you offer them a better user experience, which ranges from a complete library available on the internet, devices to reproduce the music, And he and Steve Jobs had a very, I would say, fine intuition to know what people wanted to do and wanted to experience. So he's, I would say, the customer experience guy, if you want. And I think that he was absolutely right. So when we talk about technology, when we talk about MP3s, when we talk about DCCs, let's keep in mind that it is about the end user experience, the benefits and the advantages. In fact, if you look at this from a more abstract point of view, this is what tends to happen when you start digitalizing data, when you start to digitalize the processes around the data, usage, consumption, analysis. Well, that's what happens. And still, whether it is an MP3 file or a DCC XML file, these are just vehicles to allow for that user experience to happen in the first place. So I think that we should put the customer value in the spotlight, and also during this conference, engage in discussions to find out what the benefits for you will be, or for your own stakeholders that surround you. I think that as a group, we should strive for a very wide adoption, local, regional, national, international, global, because many beneficiaries have a very global footprint. Now, why should they use it, and where should we start? First of all, I think we have to address needs of those stakeholders. And people will ask themselves the questions like, does it cover my needs, my data needs? Does it reflect those data attributes that I need in my daily job? Or does it allow me to improve the processes around calibration? And I'm quite hopeful that we will reach a critical mass, which will mean that DCC adoption will be a reality quite soon. What we also need to take into account is that although we talk about technology, it is still a people's business. What you see there on the top right upper corner is a CD. When the development team at Philips in the Netherlands sat together to discuss the duration of the music CD, how big the diameter of the gap should be, it was not so obvious to take a decision. But they had to take a decision. And one of the persons who was sitting there said, well, I love Beethoven. I love the Fifth Symphony of Beethoven. And I would like to have this symphony on one single compact disc. And so it became a fact. So they took that decision, and they took that as a kind of a guideline recommendation, and eventually as a fact, to determine the duration of the music CD. The same happened, by the way, with the diameter of the gap. How small, how big should it be? Well, in that case, that person took a small coin, 10 cents before the euro, put it on a table, and then said, this is going to be the diameter of the gap. Job done. Decision made. So, what we need to do is to engage with others. And with others, I mean within a certain constellation, we will have different stakeholders with different points of view. And what you see here is, by the way, a real use case, a real business case. So we sat together with a group of stakeholders, and especially with the industrial customer on the left, and and they told us that they work with dozens of service providers that do calibrations for them on a global level, by the way. So I think that it's quite easy for you to imagine that it would be very beneficiary to or very beneficial to have a digital format to exchange information. Imagine having people around the globe, in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia. Hey, how easy would it then be to exchange information in a secure, uniform, and transparent way? And take a look at the next picture, please. The same constellation, but now let's move our attention to the guys there in the middle, the service providers. I guess that by now you may have guessed that these guys will most likely have more than one customer, more than one industrial customer that they help with calibration. And that's a fact, that's the reality. So in fact, what does this mean for the data exchange from their point of view? Well, exactly this here. Data exchange grows or grows and quite fast. Of course, my slide is too small to show an extended networks, but if you consider a third, fourth, fifth degree connection, you can imagine that if you would zoom out, you will see a huge area, a huge network with many stakeholders exchanging data. So, in fact, if we concentrate on the benefits of this, I think that it is very easy to see the value. For sure, there are many aspects that we need to be clarified, like how to exchange data. What about encryption? Security is always a very important part in this kind of developments. And rest assured, this is being addressed. I think that we have here a perfect setting, a very good opportunity to engage with other stakeholders. And I'm sure that you will find people that you probably are working with. And maybe in one occasion you will be the receiver of data. In another occasion you will be sending information. So somehow we need to, let's say, engage with other stakeholders, find agreements how to work, and technology is there to support this. And the format is this, let's say, I think fundament, and in fact the language that we want to speak with each other. So if you think like I do, I think then we might agree that digitalization of metrology is just a matter of time, and in fact it's already happening right now. Imagine this as a winding road with many curves, and this very important international conference will allow you to get to know a lot about the DCC and take a first look at what's behind the first curve. And we all know that there are more curves ahead of us, and that's okay. We'll take it step by step. Imagine that the people who invented the MP3 back in the 90s, do you think that anybody had a clear idea that we would be enjoying technologies like services like Spotify or Tidal? I'm sure there are visionaries, but I think that people back then just benefited from the advantages that the MP3 gave them back then. So take it step by step. There is more to come, and we can trust that innovations will take place in this area. So I think there's one more thing. And there's one more thing we need to talk about. And that is, enjoy the conference, enjoy the interaction with others, and enjoy the discussions. So I wish you a very successful, productive, and insightful conference. Thank you very much.